High-profile arrest, a trial, and the ensuing press coverage. We've seen it a lot over the past several years. But what's it like to be the person dealing with the judge, the jury, and of course the court of public opinion? Well, our next guest knows exactly what it's like. Following charges of public corruption, for which he was later sentenced to federal prison, former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich is joining us this morning. Governor, good morning. Great to have you back on the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Governor, I want you to walk us through a moment that we all witnessed on Tuesday, the moment the verdict was being read by the judge in Minneapolis. You've been in a very similar situation before, but the difference, Derek Chauvin, he looked particularly confused to me. Let's take a look and then we'll get some reaction.
We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty.
All right, so Governor, your thoughts. What's going through his head there?
Well, it's a terrible place to be and find yourself in.
Right.
I think it was pretty evident that when it was announced that the jury had reached a verdict, something like after 11 hours of deliberation, that's a strong signal. I think his lawyers probably prepared him for the fact that he was going to be found guilty. I know that in my first trial, because they didn't convict me of the fake corruption charges that they brought against me. At the first trial, it took 20 days for the jury to deliberate, which was an indication that they were looking carefully at all of the evidence. At the second trial, when they moved the line and used an unlawful standard to gain what I am certain is an unlawful conviction, it didn't take that long. So when you're sitting there and you hear those words, you sort of know going in what direction it's gonna tip. And in the case of Officer Chauvin, personally, watching that tape, I don't know what kind of defense he could have put on, but I will say this: I don't believe that he was in a position where he could have received a fair trial with all of the hysteria that was surrounding that trial, particularly with Congresswoman Maxine Waters' comments shortly before the jury reached its verdict.
Yeah, Governor, let me ask you about that. I agree with you. So I know that you're also an attorney as well. Maxine Waters, 82 years old, she spent her Saturday night flying to Minnesota from California and literally interfering in the criminal justice system in another state. Take a listen.
Well, we got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
All right, so does the Chauvin conviction have a real chance of being overturned because of her actions there? And then we got to think about those other 3 cops. They'll go on trial August 23rd.
I can't imagine how the appellate court could uphold the convictions after that. Now, will they uphold the convictions? If I were betting, I would say yes. I believe I've learned the hard way that courts can be very political and that they are fearful of public opinion. And when you gin up the mob like she just did, it's very hard to get the court to do the right thing. Today, in high-profile cases like mine and Officer Chauvin, and again, I'm not comparing myself at all to his circumstances, but the facts are less about what happens in the courtroom than what happens in the court of public opinion. And that's not how our criminal justice system is supposed to work. So I think he has a strong appeal, and under the law, I think he'd have a very good chance of prevailing. But practically looking at the politics of it, what I've learned about how the courts oftentimes whitewash decisions because of the political considerations.
Exactly.
I don't know that he's going to get that result.
Okay, so do you think the jury was scared of what could happen if Chauvin was acquitted? Because we know that everyone would find out who those jurors are, and the mob, Antifa, they would make their lives very, very difficult.
Yes, and let me say this. Based on what I see on that tape, I believe Officer Chauvin is guilty. I think that the verdict was correct. What I'm questioning is the process and whether he was even given a chance to have a fair hearing from the jury. I believe the jury, of course, was intimidated. How could they not be when you have a congresswoman who's a leader in the Democratic caucus in Washington stirring up the local community?
Right.
You know, there is systemic racism in America. I firmly believe that. It comes in many forms. And you have an officer like Officer Chauvin committing the act that he committed, but you have it also in the 1994 crime bill written by Joe Biden. You have it also in Kamala Harris when she was the DA in San Francisco and the wrongful conviction against Jamal Truelove, a black man who was innocent of murder. She condemned him to prison for life. He spent 13 years there until he was finally found to be innocent. You have systemic racism in the 1994 crime bill and the results of incarcerating young black nonviolent first-time offenders who are not given a chance at a second chance because of these long sentences, because of Biden's crime bill.
Governor, the city of Chicago is an absolute disaster. Of course, it would be a step down from being governor, but why don't we run again? Why don't we run for mayor and get Lori Lightfoot out? Have you given that any thought?
No, but I'll say this again. This talk about defunding the police by the Democrats is not a position that supports black lives.
Right.
75% of the murders in Chicago are black people. Without the police, the gangbangers who already control a lot of those neighborhoods and a lot of those streets will control everything. And the only thing that protects black people from those gangbangers, gun-wielding gangbangers, carjackers, and drug dealers who kill innocent people are the police. And this idea of defunding the police is, in my view, a form of systemic racism by the Democrats. I was a former prosecutor who worked with police. I was a former Democratic congressman who received a 90% rating from the NAACP. I was a Democratic governor. I'll tell you this, there is more systemic racism in today's Democratic Party than there is in police departments.
We've got to leave it there. Thank you so much. Maybe you'll be on a ballot again. Who knows? Come and let us know here on Wake Up. We'd love to hear from you. Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.